Good morning, St. Maarten. What's up? August 28th, 2023. In a few days, 8 months of the year would have passed us. And as we get closer to the end of the year, we will be confronted with elections and other things. But let me start off with a few notices because I'm going to have a very interesting program today. When I say interesting, I mean extremely interesting. Let me first say congratulations to all proud Curacauians and other people that believe in their Little League system. Curacao was in the junior division of Little League, was able to capture the International World Championship, and they are the, how would I say, the sub-world champs. In my opinion, they are the world champs because the better teams, they face them. Like Chinese Taipei, Cuba, just to name a few. Venezuela was another one that played good ball. But, you know, what it shows, Curacao, the senior division, they won the World Championship itself outright. The junior division won the sub-champ of the World Series. It shows you how an integral part baseball is in the lives of the kids in Curacao, because they are performing at a world stage, not just anymore in the Latin American games, but at the world stage. And this is important because if you look at Curacao there was an article on CNN some day ago there. Curacao has the most baseball players in major leagues per capita for the amount of people they have. They have 140, 160,000 people, and they got over 20, 30 Major League Baseball players. Tells you something. They have the ability, and so do we. The difference is they put a lot of money into Little League. We hardly do. Bottom line. This weekend also has truly been a crazy weekend. All over the place. Social media had a blast. I know there was a whole to-do at the economic presentation on Saturday with the former Prime Minister Le Pen. There was a whole to-do outside with two gentlemen concerning a $5,000 statement that was made on the radio, and he came to collect his money. Again, it shows you that these type of things that are said can get out of hand very easily. Eventually, the police was called, and they took care of the matter. Also, we had a new song released, Woman King, a brilliant song. I must say, I like the lyrics. And the Prime was also in the song. That's how she called herself. The Prime is here. But I loved how she closed it with her now famous line, "Stop moving." You know, that's a line that made it on CNN. So I think elections are there. It's time for a comeback. Need to get a line back ready. Stop moving. So it was fun. And then naturally we had the whole airport saga. Another version was released, but this version, with all due respect, is getting very personal. A lot of infidelities are mentioned, people who are losing their jobs. Well, what is interesting, though, is that nobody's contradicting these things. So, to the layman, anybody that reads it, don't read it as melee alone, but read it as truth. Because what I've done now, I've started a compilation of how many people lost their jobs at the airport from 2019 until now. And I'll tell you something, I needed more than a whole sheet of paper to write down the names. That on itself is extremely scary because we are destroying our own. But I'll get back to that a little later when we discuss the airport. Another something at the airport itself was the leaving of the commercial director. Now, the reason I bring it up in notices is because the good man left, but the airport said nothing. If it wasn't last week, Tuesday, when we had a discussion on the SOS radio station about this airport commercial director leaving, much wouldn't have been said. Remember, this is the gentleman that replaced Audrey Jack, who, by the way, is still suspended, still being paid, and now I understand they want to offer her a payout to leave. But the good lady is not leaving. I would advise her not to leave. Leave the jackass leave. Because clearly, the destruction of our local people is rampant at the airport, supported by the NA up government. I don't care what nobody says about that, because that's what it is. They stand by. You can use all excuses about you're distancing yourself at all times. The NA-UP government is responsible for the board of directors of the holding, who instructs PGIAE how to go. So please, stop telling me you can't do nothing when you know you can, but you're a coward not to. That's a big difference. You know, I find it strange that yet again another female left the Human Resources Department after 18 years working there. These people are just leaving. They can't deal with it no more. And then, to top it off, the CEO of the airport, my little jackass, went on Facebook, Twitter, all over the place, Instagram, calling women dogs. Why? Because an MP asked for a parliamentary inquiry in the airport. But a little more later about that. But remember, sir, if women are dogs, ask yourself where you came from. In the Food for Thought editorial of the Daily Herald, unfortunately, the information was not truly correct. All the treated sewage water that is released into the fresh pond has an extremely high quality and cannot be considered sewage anymore. You know, if nobody knew where that water came from, you'd have nearly bottle it and sell it like how other bottled water is sold on this island. That high, the quality of the sewage water that has been treated is. Now, all untreated sewage, when it comes in, if the plant is defect, there are two things that can happen. Either you put it into a 500 cubic meter retention bag, or we send it through a decontamination system using UV lights, and that goes under the 88 road into the salt pond. At no point in time is that raw untreated sewage discharged into the fresh pond. I just need to clarify that, because it creates the impression as if everything is thrown into the fresh pond, and that is not true. That is completely not true. But does sewage reach the fresh pond, the Bel Air pond, the lagoon, the salt pond? Yes, it does. Through our culverts, through our waterways, because we have a sewage problem in most of the areas that drain off into these locations. Why? Because there are so many apartments, so many houses built with inadequate sewage tanks that it's flooding all the time. I mean, Bel Air, Dutch Quarter, go look on the road. Where you think that water ends up? It ends up in Pont de Saline in Freshwater. So yes, we do have sewage going into the sea, unfortunate. But please let us not do as if that's the sewage plant's fault alone, because it is not. The sewage plant has approximately 17,000 connections, residents connected to it. A plant that is 35,000 strong. It can hold 35,000 people. We have about 60,000 people here, so do the math. We have about 25% connected to sewage. That's what it means, no more, no less. The rest is either in the sewage tanks by their house or in the gutter. That's how simple it is. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I don't think it's correct that the sewage plant got the brunt of this one, because that's not fair. Unfortunately, it's not so. But does sewage reach into the sea? Absolutely. Absolutely. No ifs and buts about that. In Bel Air, it runs into the Bel Air pond, and the Bel Air pond has a little discharge on the side. So once the pond is high, it's going to discharge into the sea. Happens all the time. Some of the hotels discharge their sewage from their sewage plants into the pond. Others, when you drive alongside Phillipsburg, go up the hill, those hotels over there discharge into the sea. Every day. Go down Pelican, go down Oyster Pond. It happens every day. What was food for thought there? You see, when you're going to write a story, ask the questions first. Instead of driving a narrative like how they did on the front page today. Dutch offers St. Maarten 3.5% financing and then say it's nearly done. It's not done. If St. Maarten doesn't accept the monies from India, they ain't getting nothing. They're getting 8%. Very misleading. But okay. Gasoline, diesel, and oil are rising again. I think it went up 10 cents, 15 cents per liter. You know what that means? Higher fuel clause, higher GB bills. GB cutting starting today, nearly all over the island. It means that we're going to have a serious problem with that. But the reality is that this government still hasn't done absolutely nothing. They ain't even trying to do something with renewable energy, with solar panels. Nothing. I'll say it again. There is money that we can make an agreement with homeowners and schools and businesses to put solar panels on their roof so we can drop the dependency on fuel. But we smile at everybody that talks about it and we move on. And today you see what we have. I agree with you. GB still sent out a lot of bills. I spoke to people, at least 15 people, maybe a little more, over the weekend, because they called about this whole GB starting to cut today and how some of them don't get bills, etc., etc. It is a sad reality we live in. But I promised myself I wasn't going to go at GB for a while. I was going to try to give the management of GB a chance. But I will talk to them this week and we'll see where we will end up, because at the end of the day, it is not about protecting GB, but it's about standing up for the rights of the people of this country. Again, we have another huge discussion ongoing about opening hours for nightclubs, restaurants, supermarkets, etc. But nowhere did I see in that whole discussion a flexibilization of the working hours. Because this is something that we need to start looking into. And very often when people hear flexibilization, they think they're getting just simply less hours. No, it's not necessarily so. But you can maneuver your hours. You can create spaces, work other days, work maybe 4 days if you so desire, but 10 hours a day. And still have 40 hours. You see, this is what a flexibilization was all about. It would then give the businesses also the opportunity to stay open longer without hiring a second person. Those are possibilities. But again, we didn't go there. I didn't see that. Now, again, according to the MP that presented this proposal in Parliament, it's about 9,500 people that work in this workforce, this nightclub business, restaurants, etc., nightclubs, bars. That's about 44% of the workforce registered by SFV. It will be interesting to see if that's really true. Because there might be 9,500 people working, but the amount of undocumented is not discussed here. And again, I keep standing on this. We cannot be adjusting things for people that are not even documented nor pay into our society. We got to be honest with these things. But again, then they came up with noise pollution and they're going to put that in the law, because 71% of all the noise pollution complaints at TIAT, all complaints from TIAT, 71 is noise pollution. I know for a noise pollution fact that there's a lady living in the Cul-de-Sac Basin, very close to the skating ring, has written at least 5 reports, and they don't do nothing. They come there, they have measuring machines. Don't tell me they don't have, because I know they have. Because I've spoken to them. I know the gentlemen them that go out and do these things. They come and they tell you the noise too much. And the noise traveling over the water. And this and that and that. And then you're going to measure 30 meters from the location. Look, all of these things were there already. The reason the police couldn't enforce some of these things is because they didn't have the equipment. And I know the Minister of Justice, when I was yet in Parliament, noise pollution and driving under the influence, so we could test you, were the 2 laws I was working on. And I know the Minister of Justice told me I am also working on the noise pollution and the alcohol testing. So again, this is 2 years ago nearly. I'm just trying to understand why an El-Bayham can be made to do some of these things. Because normally in the law, you don't specify the type of equipment, this and this. Those are there. We can take them over from Aruba and Curacao. There's no difficulty in these. We know those laws, they exist. Just the same way how we took the law with plastic bags from Aruba, we can take other laws from Aruba and put them there. I don't understand. But again, in this same extension of hours and all that, what about wages? Because in this profession, the most important part of a wage is tips. But no place in this proposal are we talking to regulate that one time. Because it's simple, eh? It's a very simple regulation. Don't let nobody fool you. Tips can be excluded from wages, that they are not considered a wage. That simple it is. And this problem goes away. All the audits coming to check businesses to see how much tips are made or if there's a service charge. Because a service charge is a whole different story than a tip. Make tips non-taxable. Conversation over. But we don't do that. This law, or this proposal, in my opinion, is to facilitate campaign donors. No more, no less. Now, there was a lot of to do in the newspaper about the exams. The exams from next year, May, have been moved to April of this year, and basically the schools were not consulted. And there was a whole report in the media about this, and you can see various school managers expressing their utter disappointment because, sorry, in their opinion, in their humble, educated opinion, the children might not be ready in time. 6 weeks is a lot of time to take from school-going children and say, do your exams now. And they say, yeah, but carnival vacation. No, that's when children prepare. You can't take away the time and say, well, there was 2 weeks vacation in between there, and there was Easter, and there was this. So, no. Talk to the professionals in the field. I think there was a blunder made in the communication world here. Had you spoken to the schools, I think you would have still been in May. And that's what the schools are now asking for, that we go back to May. So I think we need to sometimes think before we act, because sometimes action can have a serious effect on the future. All right, low season has started this week, next week, and GB is cutting. Now, if people are not getting bills, and GB says, well, pay something on your bill, but pay something on my bill and I don't have a bill, yet you're cutting. That could be kind of funny. Now, I know a lot of people cannot afford their GB bills at present, for whatever reason. Just like how they couldn't afford school fee. And haircuts were given and bags were given. Maybe GB vouchers can be given now by the government. We gotta agree that St. Maarten people are in a very difficult position. I like the article, prices gone down in St. Maarten, but inflation went up. So again, we can't look in people's pockets. And we need to understand that a lot of people are having a difficult time right now. And if we can't understand that, then we have a serious problem on our hand. Because a lot of people can go in darkness. A lot of people in St. Maarten can go in darkness this coming week. It will be interesting to get from the government how many people were disconnected this week and next week by NVGB. It will be a very interesting number to get. I can guarantee you it's going to be hundreds of people. So, here we go again with another 600 million euro loan. Remember, our loan at present, if I read it in the papers today, is 316 million, according to Van Hoffelen. 316.4 million that the government owes right now on liquidity loans. And that will be refinanced with 3.1% interest if, listen carefully, if St. Maarten and Curacao take the 600 million euro loan to pay off and protect the INEA pension. It's about 30,000 people are involved with this INEA pension. And Curacao has about 25,000, I understood, and St. Maarten has about 5,000. So those are big numbers. And I mean, I myself, as a government, at all costs would I try to protect the people of St. Maarten's pension. And if it means you take the loan under these conditions, it is difficult to tell the Minister of Finance, don't do it. But, there's a but. Up until now, there is no agreement. September 1st is around the corner. That is Thursday coming, Friday coming. Friday is September 1st. If by then there's no agreement, because this 600 million euro loan goes through who? Who approves this? The COM? Does the COM decide to take this money just like that? Or does this go to Parliament? And I ask that reason very specifically. Because the coalition has no majority in Parliament right now. So they have no surety that they can make a vote count in there. They are banking on the opposition to go along because it says in the well-being of the people. But why are we in this position? That's the question. The courts made a decision. The court said that the Ansari group was wrong. And the Ansari group is now tying up the central bank and all of them in America in courts. So I don't know how this is going to play out today yet. But this week I will gather some more information because I have a strong feeling we're in for a rude awakening at St. Maarten here. The more spoken about court case last week was the court verdict on Vineyard Heights, which slammed the government quite hard, besides accusing former Minister Myers of inefficient and/or dishonest administration for land distribution. It was somewhat strange in the beginning that I didn't hear much. Then after that, I saw an article, I can't remember if it was on Facebook or in the media, about this was a great win for the country. No, it wasn't. It was at no point in time a great win. It was a lose-lose-lose situation, not a win-win-win. And why do I say this? Because you have to realize that when you read a verdict, that there's more written in that verdict than people are talking about. There's more written in that verdict that will have a very serious effect on the government moving forward. Remember, the whole matter of the handwritten changes on deeds, etc., I can wholeheartedly support the judge saying, listen, this is a little far-fetched. Minister, you should have known better. You should have never done this. This is onbehoorlijk bestuur. Why would you give this to people? Why would you tell people go and pay by cadastre for a made brief, etc.? And you did this when you were leaving office. So you have a few things against you. One, the draft deeds were not really draft deeds, because a draft deed can be with a bunch of writings on it. Basically, a draft deed is a clear deed with one exception. It doesn't carry the certificate of measurement in the deed yet. So the made brief is not known. For the rest, basically, the deed is ready. Once you can insert the certificate of measurement, it goes up to the minister. He signs that. Then it goes down to the notary. The notary prepares the deed. You go to the notary, and the minister or his representative go to the notary. They sign it off, and they register that cadastre. That's how that goes. It's not a difficult process. Sometimes it can take long because ministers don't like to always go and sign if they didn't give off the land. But the judge didn't stop there. What happened is the judge went a whole step further. The judge said, not only did Minister Myers handle wrong, but you too, Mr. Duran, you too handled totally wrong with your 25. You did not follow the procedures. You didn't use equality, that everybody had a chance to get a piece of land. You were not transparent in your handlings, and we saw that when you were defending yourself in Parliament back in 2021. The judge didn't mince no words. Again, the court was clear on why the 7 deeds wouldn't pass or find life support in the decision. But there were a few things that, in my opinion, I would have hoped that there would have been an understanding for continuation in government. Because that the minister made adjustments to a deed doesn't mean to say that the citizen understands what's happening. The citizen depends on the entity called government to deliver a service. And if there's an issue within the entity, then you look there. But as judge, you can't sit on the seat of the entity. There are procedures in place that must be adhered to. All too often, if a judge doesn't agree with a procedure, he gives his decision based on a procedure that he feels should be there. Now, mind you, I say this because when it comes to the land, the domain land policy, the only thing written in the law is that the minister has sole discretion to give out land. Now, we can tie this to good governance and all those type of things, because a government should work under good governance. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Parliament requested a land policy back in 2021, October 2021, when the Minister Duran, was slammed with a motion of disapproval. He even blamed Parliament a few days ago for the Vineyard Heights delay. But in Parliament, there were 5 members of the coalition then that supported the motion of disapproval. I think the minister forgot that. There were 2 votes out of the 12 that said the minister was okay. That was the chairman of the parliament and a stalwart of the NE. The rest all voted against. All voted against the minister. So they supported the motion of disapproval. I think it's very important that people remember these things, because you need to understand when a decision is taken that the judge is going to start telling you what to do, that means you have no procedures, or he doesn't respect the existing procedures. One of the two. It can be different. Now, when a judge doesn't respect an existing procedure, you have a serious problem with 3S Politicas, because he has now decided to sit on a seat that's not his to sit on. No matter the leeway that the law can give, like what happened in Curacao with gay marriages, the reason the appellate court went that direction is because they said it was in the law was discriminating. Now remember, once there is a policy in place, I don't agree with you that the policy has to be based on a law, because we don't have a law yet. We don't have zoning yet. We had hillside policy. So no, the law does, if there is no law, like in St. Maarten, in finance, in 2018, we brought in procure to pay. Before that, it was policies used in ministries, each one being different. Because an MP told me that when he was in the tourism office as the head, he never sent an LBA to the governor. Of Rome, we always did. So again, that's a policy. That's a habit. That's a way of working. And I say this for other things. But understand what I'm trying to say. We went a step further when I did some more research to understand this verdict better. And it brought me back to the country packages. Because in the country packages under E7, it speaks about a land policy, And it speaks about a spatial development plan, a zoning plan. And a plan of approach was to be made and approved by July 2023. And the approval of that plan of approach was to be done by the Netherlands and Sint Maarten. So Sint Maarten wasn't going to agree to the plan of approach alone. The Netherlands wanted to be there to ensure that the plan of approach would cover all bases. And I think that this was also used in the audit. It was used in the audit. Because I can't see a judge telling a minister, moving forward, you need a plan of approach. Or moving forward, you need a land policy. I understand that the judge, I don't know if it was he, a lady, a man, but the judge, I don't know. I get the impression that they're telling you, you must have a policy if you want to grant land, because they're using the equality basis. When people are being discriminated, are being abused because the friends and families are being given something, the judge steps in and says, ain't gonna happen this way anymore. And that's where things go wrong. I agree with the judge. I think the judge should have implemented a decision on the government that approved land policy that meets the criteria as stipulated in the country packages, because this is an agreement that was made between country Sint Maarten and the Netherlands. You cannot just circumvent that, sir, ma'am. And that's why I was a little confused on how this must go. But clearly, the justice seems to have decided that the Vromi minister must take into account the general principles of good administration when making a decision to grant land. And the discussion is going to be the general principles of good administration, where equality must be part, transparency must be part of the decision making. This is what it boils down to. That's what it boils down to. So at this point in time, Minister Durant cannot give off a piece of land if it wasn't done on the basis of equality, so everybody had a chance to apply for a piece of land, or that it was transparent to show how it was done. Not that it is hand-picked friends and family or office personnel, like the judge said in the case of Myers, that their people were hand-picked. There was no come and write up your name, etc., etc. No, they were hand-picked up front. This is what the judge had an issue with. So again, the preferential treatment is what the judge wanted to block. And that's how that verdict went a little bit. But again, where do we go from here? So again, you know, it is, in my opinion, one of these cases where a judgment is made, and if the country doesn't say, but I don't agree with this, you're sitting on my seat, you have a problem. But I don't think the minister going to be able to give out any land now. And I'm going to discuss later the pure nonsense about how he's going to be billing this and he's going to be billing that and he's going to be doing that. You ain't doing nothing, son. Politics is on, elections are on, you need a little gimmick, others singing songs, you want to build houses. That's all nice and well. But we're going to expose what needs to be exposed. You know what the fun part be? You know how they say, karma's a bitch? This is karma. The ombudsman was investigating the Vineyard Heights. So the minister thought to his smart self, I gonna go to courts. And then the ombudsman get packed up. You're right, the ombudsman got packed up. And so did you. Because had the ombudsman written a report, you know what happened? They'd have voted away 8-7 again. And they'd have gone under the rug, just like the garbage collection. Just like that one. And you'd have been clear to do some other nonsense again. But your stupidity, your ego, to pack up the ombudsman has now packed you up. And on this one, you can't duck because the judge is in the ombudsman. Cross them, you're going to find out how late to be. So it's nice to see how, you know, things swing back around and pack you up. I think the PFP had a field day being able to show that in the verdict, a lot of the considerations of the October 20th, 2021 motion of disapproval form the basis of the decision making. So kudos to the PFP, who warned Parliament and the public of St. Maarten since October 20th, 2021 that what was happening was wrong. We laughed at it. We voted for it. Government did nothing about it, so the judge pack them up right now. And it is what it is. Bye-bye, PGA Commercial Director. This is another episode that only God understands. After 3 months, the newly appointed Commercial Director at PGA walks away, and the airport thought there was no reason to inform the public of St. Maarten that after all this long and paid for, what would I call it? Comedy show, to bring in a foreigner instead of using your local, walks away because he didn't come here to work in a kindergarten. And the filthy mouth of Mr. Mingo did not assist with him working there. The toxic environment showed him that this wasn't the place for him to be. Not a word was said. Not a word. And naturally, our government, as usual, crickets on this matter. Nothing is said. But I'll tell you this. At this point in time, the destroying of locals and the support of racism at the airport is getting out of hand. And we need to understand that if we don't do what we have to do, it is going to be a bad day for St. Maarten at the airport when things go south. We cannot allow people to continue destroying our own for whatever gain or whatever plan they have. But this needs to stop, and stop now. There was a whole setup with the airport saga. I got it last night, I think it was. I read it. It is so personal. Things are really, really going through the roof down there. And we can put up nice pictures about the departure hall opening November and blah, 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 blah. And we're building big ass $2 million, $3 million buildings to take back down afterward. I mean, listen, this airport has costed us so much, not only financially, but in mankind and capacity. People that have worked there a lifetime are walking away because they cannot deal with the toxic environment that's there. Yet nobody is saying nothing. And when something happens, oh Lord, how can they do that? Why they do that? But we are creating the environment. We are allowing the toxicity to continue at the airport. And again, like I said, everybody has a breaking point. Everybody. And I pray to God that when people reach their breaking point, they just quit and don't do something wrong. Because then you're going to pay for it, unfortunately, through justice. But I hold my hat because we are getting to a point of no return. And when we reach that point, a lot of people just lost their jobs again. They sent home Mr. Skeet, I understood. There's still another lady from HR at home because they are saying she had a company down there. All kind of crazy things. All these people are suspended and being paid. And I am sure they're going to try to get rid of them and find an offer for them. But again, at the end of the day, the problem is not the employees. The problem is the top. A fish stinks by its head first. The problem is at the top. And why the government doesn't want to deal with this, I don't understand. And please keep your BS hands-off approach in your cabinet. All right? Because it ain't true what you're saying. When I look at the biasness and how job descriptions were made for the big positions, top positions, to circumvent or exclude the locals, because they're going to say you got masters in this and you got masters in that and you got this and you got that. If that was done for the CEO position, the good gentleman down there wouldn't have reached further than the janitorial services. Call it what it is. He was in TLM for 15, 20 years and he couldn't cut it to become the director there, the managing director there. Somebody else got it there. And to compensate, they put him down at the airport. Call a spade a spade. I think the leader of the UP said it best when they said, we'll clean up the airport. When an MP called for an inquiry, he said, but you forget who put him there. And that is the statement that we got to hold on to now. Who put him there? Why he there? But the coalition should deal with it. Because I can remember the leader of the UP saying, he has transformed the UP so that it is not only for a few, but for all. Well, sir, I'm going to call you out on that statement. Because down there is being destroyed by those that your party put there. Not under your watch, but your party. So look how we just blame the DP for all kind of things that were not only done by Sarah Westcott Williams, but by many others. We got to be honest. It remains with the entity that did it. So I call in you, asking you, remember, please remember what you told the public of St. Maarten. The UP is changing to be an inclusive party, not an exclusive party. Go down there and fix the nonsense that exclusively was done by the UP party. Again, I know when the now is elected, the next election, when we get it, he can count his days at the airport. And yes, they're going to tell us we can't fire him and we're going to pay him out. Take your money and go. Because it is better that we safeguard the sanity of our people in St. Maarten than the narcissistic habit of one man at the top. Call it what it is, people. Say what it is. And if you don't like it, God bless them. I ain't afraid of nobody. I respect everybody. And I fear God alone. But I will speak out anytime I see abuse taking place. And when a man could call a woman a dog, then we have reached to a new hurdle. We have reached to a place that we should have never ever reached. My mother is a woman. If you think she's a dog, brother, you got a serious problem with me. Because then you meet the real dog yet. We need to stop this stupidness. And the government is totally out of place. And the board of directors are totally out of place to allow this idiot, because that's what he is right now, an idiot, to be putting these things on Facebook. We all know who he meant. But we like to play with words. We got to be careful, because everybody can play with words. Everybody can play with words. We got to be careful. There's a new trend going on in St. Maarten with credit card charges. Businesses now are passing on the 3% or 4%, depending on which card it is, to the credit card holders. Normally, you go to a restaurant, you pay. I think the restaurant or the business pays 3 or 4% credit card charges to the bank for services. So now the business is passing that on also to the credit card company, or to the credit card user. So beside, let's say, the $100 that you have to pay for the item, you're paying $3 or $4 extra, so you're paying $104 now for the same item. And this is being done now lately with a lot of the bank credit cards. But my question is this: what does the contract between the banks and the credit cards company say? Because according to me, you can't just pass on these charges. To my knowledge, that was impossible. Maybe it changed, I don't know. But it would be interesting if the central bank or the Minister of Finance, if somebody can come out and say, banks, look, because you see, banks used to make a lot of money on interest rates. Right? It used to be 10%, 8% and all that. Now interest rates are continuously trickling down. So the banks are not making the money they used to make because of fierce competition with banks on the island. So what do you get now? They start charging for all services. Your Bancomatic, or you use it by a different machine from RBC, you're paying a transition on it, and all kind of services coming through your gazoo. That's what the banks are doing right now. They're making their money on services. But now they stepped over now to the credit cards also. And I'm sure the debit cards are going to be so just now, and so will be the Bancomaticos. Because if it can start here, it's going to finish over there. Because we transition through things and nobody even opens their mouth and says, what's really happening here? But this is something that we need to look at, because I think that we need to see there should be a better control on the charges that the banks are passing on to their clients. Nobody seems to be checking this. I don't know. Is this a central bank job that they have to check which charges all are being passed on to these things? I mean, I see a businessman says impossible not to pass on these charges, 5% TOT already, and then a gazillion % profit tax. You gotta make profit to pay. The 34%, I agree with you wholeheartedly, shoes that is the dumbest tax we have. Even the other islands in the kingdom have already dropped it, and we are still waving the flag, just like marijuana. Bahamas passed it now. The U.S. Virgin Islands legalized it, but we waving the flag of, oh yes, we come in, oh yes, we could never come. We could never. Maya, it is what it is until the now gets in. But again, let me get back to it. Why aren't restrictions placed on the interest rates given for mortgages, for example, instead of all these car loan stunts? Every time they got cash out, every bank down there offering a loan for car on the spot. But nobody offering a mortgage to people. Nobody getting mortgages. 70% lives in the poverty zone, so they didn't even qualify for a mortgage. This is the unfortunate part. Now, again, I can't tell a bank what to do. But if the bank belongs to us, to St. Maarten, to the government, with shareholders like SFV, APS, even the people of St. Maarten can buy shares into the bank, then we might not need a central bank anymore, because we would want then a monitoring system from the Dutch central bank, and we would want a Dutch bank to underwrite the St. Maarten Bank, and it would save us a lot of money, because every year we pay 70 million to run the central bank. You heard me right, 70 million. And we can consider our share, St. Maarten share, approximately 18 million. And the only thing we have to show is a building on the Pondville with about 10 employees. That's it. That's what we got to show from an entity with a Vatican in Curacao and 200 plus employees. So please understand what I am saying. I agree with you with the mortgage guarantee fund, but it was there, and they just simply messed it up in this term here. It was there. There was even a director selected, and they messed it up. I go leave that story there for now. I don't want to go deeper into it, but those that know better. Again, I don't understand debit cards being charged, because a debit card, you're not borrowing. A credit card, you just borrow money. And for that, you pay, what, 18% on your credit card. Because you pay 1.5% per month. Over the 12 months, that's 18% you paid on interest rate on your credit card. But a debit card, the money is there. You can't pay with a debit card if you want the money on your account. So why do we now charge 3% for that too? I don't understand that. Maybe somebody can explain that maybe a little better for me, but I don't understand it. I am not a banker, so I don't understand the ins and outs of the banking world. I have some friends, but maybe this is something that they can explain to us. Let me go over to the topic of my choosing for today, electoral reform. While the government is trying to curb voting corruption, there are many things that could be done to truly handle that differently, to ensure that the playing field is equal and every candidate has a fair chance to win instead of some buying their way into parliament. What I'm saying is what we live with. Everybody knows it. Nobody does nothing and nobody tries to do anything. Now, we have had 2 court cases already concerning election fraud, but these didn't really lead up to anything. No politician lost his seat, so I don't see what the issue is. On Friday last, there was a suggestion made on the Lady Gray show, if the government, for example, would lend their radio station free of charge, so that all political parties would be able to get equal time on the radio free of charge. This was made because I think the Prime Minister said that the hike in rates for talk shows during elections was absurd and should be put in check. That was her personal opinion. It was not the government's opinion, but she said she feels it should be put in check. And she was then checkmated right away by the talk show host, who said, but the government got a radio station, make that one available for free and let everybody use it. No answer was really given onto that. But again, these are all nice things. But let's talk electoral reform. What is electoral reform? Electoral reform means you got to be able to control what's happening out there. Now, on the French side, they have a different system than we have. On the French side, the government gives each party that qualifies an X amount of money. And that money is what they can use for elections. And then they give an account on how the money was used, with bills, etc. And if you break that rule, the chance that you lose your seat is significant. It has happened, I believe, 2 or 3 times on the French side already, where people were caught with electoral fraud, I want to say, because they used more money than they were allowed to use, even though it was their personal money. You may not do that. You may not disadvantage the playing field. Once you do that, you're out. A candidate is caught dumping an additional $5,000 or $10,000 that he got from his granny into the election by keeping some more rallies and having drinks and food. All of this has to be accounted for. Again, selling your story of who you are, you can do for free right now on social media. I can understand 20 years ago when there was no social media that you had to put up posters, you had to do all kinds of things because you needed attention. But today, look at me, I am sitting here now talking. I have 65 live viewers, and I'm sure my show of last week had 2,000 views. It tells you if you want to get a message out, you can. You don't need $500,000 or $300,000 from certain individuals, so that when you in, you return the favor. This is what electoral reform should be about. Once country St. Maarten gives you the money, you owe nobody but country St. Maarten. That is electoral reform. All the other hogwash around it, moving this and move, that's nonsense. That is electoral reform. Ensure that outside influence doesn't decide the election for the country. Ensure that monies that should not be used are not used. That's electoral reform. No more, no less. We can talk about moving the curtains. transparency. Everybody could see what's happening. Nobody pulling dummy ballots out of their pocket and then changing them and throwing them in like what we explained already happened in the last election, seemingly. But what about taking pictures? Is this against the law? Because I don't see if somebody wants to go in there and take a picture. They say you're taking a picture to go and show somebody outside to get money. But then prove that, please. Because if you're not going to prove that, then we just as far again. But I understand the dilemma. And I understand that we want to level the playing field. But the same people that are talking about that, let's wait till campaign day start. And we're going to see the paraphernalia outside and then ask yourself one question: where that money come from? One question: where that money come from? People got their houses loaded with campaign material already. Didn't follow the sky. Ask the question. You see, because hypocrisy is a dangerous something. Taking now caught in under the pretense that you're going to stop vote buying is hogwash. We all know the reasons. Some people didn't get campaign funds, so now they're upset with others, and they're going to do this. Me getting the campaign funds. I got Facebook. I love Facebook. It's cheap, and I can do it from wherever I want. I think the only thing I can do is walk through the districts and talk to the people. Unfortunately, they're trying to do it during Christmas. That means the party going to have to try to get some hams and turkey ready, because people going to want ham and turkey. We're going to slice it up front and give it to them so they don't say we vote buying. We're giving them a plate of food. Because they'll try to tell you one time you vote buying. But again, we need to understand what electoral reform truly is, instead of saying certain things when you don't really mean what you're saying. Electoral reform is simple. Country gives money to the parties. According to me, that happened in Holland, you know. According to me, this happens in Holland. I can't put my finger on it fully, but according to me, in the community of Kiesingen, they get the money. Nobody going up pick up money. Why isn't it happening here? Make the change. See who all going to vote against it. Then you know where you stand. Again, there was a reluctancy when this topic was discussed, because it wasn't discussed that the country was going to pay, but that only the party can get money and not the candidates. And an MP said, but then you're duping the candidate. And I didn't understand why they feel a candidate will be duped. If there's a party, the party should promote, if they get money, promote all candidates equally. Your stronger candidates need less promotion because they're already strong. In the Now party, the Now doesn't need to promote me. I think I'm strong enough. I can promote myself. But we have other members that we need to promote them, get them on TV shows, get them on radio shows, get them, you know, get their face out there in social media, you know, buy advertisement in social media. All of these things can be done, and the party should help the candidates. It shouldn't be so that a candidate has to go out there, beg people for money because there's going to be a favor in return. Money isn't for free. Stop fooling yourself. No money is for free. So we got to be careful with it. I don't understand that concept. But again, I respect everybody's opinion, but that one I can't share. You know, again, popularity contest plays a major role in politics. And it is not the ability of the person, but very often the popularity of the person. And this was made strong with the introduction of the lynch law. In those days, the lynch law came in. I think it had a place in politics. Oh, the leaders were only putting the people they wanted in the top, and the bottom of the list was very often carrying the top of the list. Think back on the DP days, Claude, 500 or 1,000 votes. The others, them had 20. They were also commissioners and so on. And then maybe at the bottom, somebody had 80 votes, but they stayed out. Again, when it was brought in, I think it served this purpose. But today, clearly, in country, St. Maarten, because of preferential votes going in. So not preferential vote going in, highest votes going in. So you can have a party that gets, the leader gets 800. Number 10 gets 150. In between there are a bunch of hundreds. Let's say 700. The other 8 had 100. In total, the party gets 2 seats. Because let's say it's 1,000. The 150 at number 10 goes in, and the number 1 goes in. But the number 2 was put there by the party leader because of the strength of the person, the knowledge in the administration. Number 10 did not get preferential votes. He just had more votes than the others. And as such, they said that was the democracy and let them go in. You know what that created? A popularity contest and a major, massive vote buying contest. That's what it did. So the lynch law needs to be reviewed. And if you have preferential votes, you go through. And if you don't have them, you ain't going no place. So again, there are things we can do. But we need to look at what we are doing and how we are doing it. Because it is not working the way it is today. So if you want to do electoral reform, do it right. Our locals and the food business. For the last 2 weeks, I've been confronted by a lot of people that keep complaining that locals don't have an opportunity anymore to compete in the food business because they are being wiped out by the Indian and the Chinese community when it comes to food businesses on the island. And again, while I wholeheartedly understand the problem, we need to tackle it, not that it's an Indian or a Chinese, but we need to tackle it from the sense of, okay, why are we giving these licenses the way we are? Because in every neighborhood, supermarkets are popping up. LB Scott Road has about 4, 5 of them, I think. And they keep popping up. I know there's a big one coming down in St. John's also. And if you look in other districts, you drive down the roads, I think Simpson Big about 8 or 10 of them on the main road. And I'm saying, but the mums and pops are being wiped out. And I understand that you want to give a license to people that come here to do business. I am asking, so who are they employing? Because walk into these supermarkets and try to find a local employee. Honestly, try it. I'm not talking about the old Chinese that are here 30 years. Because most of those, their kids were born here too, and they have become what I call born to be here Samaritans, or Samaritans that want to uplift Samaritan. But if you look at all these new Chinese popping up, they only have Chinese working. Something is wrong there. This is what government has to look at. Because you're not giving a local mom and pop an opportunity. Most of these people, they buy in bulk with each other. So their prices can be lower if a mom and pop have to buy through a chain of people. There is no one solution fits all. But it is something we have to seriously start looking at and seeing what we can do to ensure that our own people have an opportunity in this business. This is a business that you don't just allow outsiders to come in and do, because a lot of people that come here and open these stores, and I'm not talking about the old heads. Don't confuse what I'm saying. People that have been in the business for 30 years in Samaritan are not those that are opening shops left, right, and center right now. In the past 5 years, ask yourself or ask the government how many licenses were given to grocery stores for Chinese, and you'd be amazed. You'd be amazed. I agree with your cash registers. That's a joke. And when they give you a printout, it fades after a day. So again, but that's for the tax office to deal with. My thing is this. We need to protect our own also. If the playing field is not fair, if the playing field is not transparent, then make it transparent, government. You're the one giving the licenses. You got to do that. You can't ask us to do this for you too. We have farmers on this island. They produce goods. But those goods are not taken by the supermarkets. And if the supermarkets want them, they want them at such a low price that the farmer going to continue staying in poverty. They prefer to import. And then they freeze the produce and then they take it out, because when you walk into some of the supermarkets, the produce cold. That means it comes out of a cooler or freezer. And sometimes, especially with avocados, when you cut them up, they look nice and green, and go outside, when you cut them up, they're black inside already because they're spoiled. You see, local farming has not found its position yet in the sustainability of our food chain. It needs to find itself there. If we like it or not, there's a time that we need to do things for ourselves. We got to stop putting out our hand, asking for a handout. And by empowering our farmers, our people that do eggs and all of these things, so that they can sell them in the stores too. On the French side, I know it's a little different with the co-op, and maybe a discussion should come out there with French and Maarten to see how can we work together, how can we do something more. Because we are still one island. We are one people but two different administrations. But that doesn't mean to say we can't work with each other. And this is maybe one of the fields we can. I really think we should do a little more about it. Now, you know, every week I just give out a little political gimmick nonsense, you know, towards fooling people. But yeah, elections are due, so everybody trying to troll thing here. But again, here we go. Old Minister Stupidity. First he went pong off his chest about how he win the case until he realized he didn't win. But again, the problem with this whole verdict, that we can't do nothing no more, is right now good for the country. So that we don't start giving away things again because elections coming. Because that's the norm of day. I'm not saying he's the only one to do it, you know. A lot of ministers have done it. Election coming, they're giving away things. That's unfortunate. Someday go there, they were talking about a moratorium, and then they said they're going to start checking everybody who got rental cars, and he used them, and T's and G's, he used them, pull them in and give them to other people. Instead of dealing with the problem, all the French number plates. No, sir. They ain't gonna get them votes. That might cause them not get money from some of the people. So, let's grab those that ain't with us any way that we know. We're going to do it with them. But again, elections are going to be different this time. People are tired of what's happening in this country. People are tired of being told, here's $500, here's $400, throw the vote on me. Because for the other 4 years, they get nothing. They remain in poverty, they remain hopeless, and that's unfortunate. We need to empower our people. And Minister telling people you're going to build homes and all that is just a joke. You know, Minister, you have no money to build any homes. You have no land to build any homes. And anything you start now, you will definitely not finish. Because you ain't coming back as minister. But besides that, because it doesn't just stop there. Vineyard Heights is going to have a long tail yet. Because there are people that own that land and are claiming that land now. And they have made this known through courts already. I believe they have written it to the government. So I need people to understand. The verdict of the judge was clear. If there's no equality, no transparency in whatever we do, we're going to have a problem when it comes to land or land being used. So we're going to take land and we're going to build affordable homes. And then we're going to do what? Create a list with criterias, publish that, allow everybody to register, have an independent group of professionals review that, and then all those that qualify, put them in a tombola and pull out the winners? Because that's transparency, and that's giving everybody an equal chance. But if you're going to pick up your cousin, your brother, and this one and that ain't nothing about transparency or equality. That's the same old friends and family nonsense that the judge has warned you for. So again, we need, because, you know, the minister went as far as saying, yeah, he is going to give those first 7 that lost the court case an opportunity. But they were not selected fairly, sir. The judge said it. Otherwise, he'd have given them the land, you know. So you see, nothing against nobody. But you seem not to even understand the damn verdict. But you're running your mouth about what you're going to do. You're going to do nothing. Your party already told you, sit down and behave yourself now. You see what the judges do? So take it easy, son. Go sip some coffee or tea. Do something in that building. But clearly, you have no clue of what's really happening in this country. I laughed when I heard the minister blame Parliament for the Vineyard Heights. Out to everybody, you know. Parliament! The good man can't count. Because 5 of the 10 votes against him came from his coalition. The good man can't count. Because if the Parliament do it to him, his own do it to him. Those that presented the motion knew that it was going to pass. You know why? Because it was such a problem moving forward with the minister getting any sort of information on what was happening up there. Everybody could have seen that it was wrong. October 2021, this happened. August 22nd, the judge sent him flying 2 years further. And you're going to tell me you learned? You didn't learn. You thought you'd get away with murder. You did not. You got nailed to a cross. So, hopefully, the government is going to tell the young man to take it easy now so that they stand a chance in hell to do something during elections. Because right now, it ain't happening. I had a laugh, let me call it this way. A laugh because I want to be respectful. When I read that the Prime Minister was sending letters personally, or maybe on behalf of the COM, I'm not sure, because she said she speaks on behalf of the COM for all the countries, for all the government-owned entities, that they must have a policy to hire locals primarily in top functions. This is utter nonsense. The Prime Minister is sending companies a letter to primarily hire locals in top functions. She has stood by for the past 2 years and seen the airport massacre its locals. Up until today, no CFO, still a Dutchman, with all the contracts from Schiphol. No CEO, a Dutchman. Then they created a commercial director, CDO. A Dutchman came in and he gone. No locals. So Prime Minister, when you're talking stupidity now, I'm going to call you out on it. You can rap all you want, but I'm going to call you out when you can't govern this country. Because this is utter nonsense. Nobody in this government has been protecting the locals. They jumped up. You are qualified. You are this. They had mixers. 300 plus people came. One was hired. You all are serious. You all said we are one. Which one are we? Because most of you all don't even know where you are. This is a joke that we do this. But the joke doesn't stop there. You know why? Because the government itself in their regulations in the LMA, do not hire locals first. They do not. Don't even tell you that. Because that law doesn't say that. The LMA is open to anybody to apply. Anybody. And mind you, we have in Strombeleid, let's call it an intake policy, which regulates the recruitment procedures. And that also doesn't have a regulation to give Samaritans a preferential chance. It doesn't. The only thing it has is that if there is a promotion possible, they try to take the civil servants that are already working, no matter where they come from. Again, you send a letter to give locals priority. But in government itself, in the LMA, and in the intake policy, it's not regulated that way. You see where we're going, Madam Prime Minister? You doing things because it sounds nice and it might be an electoral stunt. But it's utter nonsense. That's what you're doing. You're making this country look like a fool with sending out those letters. But again, you know, I still have one simple question. Who's a Samaritaner? Madam Prime Minister, who is a Samaritaner? How have we defined a Samaritaner? I can recall Leopold James, and I mention him by name, because if there was one man that tried his utmost for over 20 plus years to define a Samaritan with his grassroots movement, with the late Eldridge from Putnam and them, was Mr. Leopold James. He even made ID cards to say, we are Samaritaners. He at least had a criteria. We have none. At this point in time, we really have none. Yet you send a letter to get local. Who is a local? Who is a local? He born here, he father, and then to make matters even worse, I see an article in the media written by a sitting MP, whom, by the way, for 4 years was a Prime Minister of this country, asks the question, who is a Samaritaner? And then I really scratched my head, because I think on Leopold James, I think on the letter, look back in, I think it was in SMN News, SMN News, someplace in February 2010, a letter was written to that same MP. That time she was an Island Council member, about this, who's a Samaritaner. Because I like how they tell us now to see what we're going to base it on. I mean, we haven't done nothing for 13 years. We haven't done absolutely nothing of who's a Samaritaner. And we spend more time on debating what we should rename the streets and all of those things, instead of defining who is a Samaritaner. Because that's what it's all about. Who are we? Are we a melting pot in the Caribbean or in the world? We have 120-something different nationalities living here. Samaritan born might be what, 30, 40%? Samaritan born in the 40% from parents that are not from Samaritan is what, 15% maybe? So what is a Samaritaner? We don't know. Because we have never taken the time to set up what a linear would be for a Samaritaner. Irregardless to where we end, maybe we should take up where Mr. Leopold James left off as a starting point and move forward. Because at the end of the day, this country has no clue who a true Suwaligan is. It depends who's telling the story, that they will decide what a true Suwaligan is. And that's unfortunate. But again, we too, including me, have never stood up for who's a Samaritaner. I come from a family of 9 generations in Maarten. I come from a family that was slaves in Maarten. Am I a true Samaritaner? Is my literature back enough? My mother was an Arubian. Does that still allow me to be a true Samaritaner? You see where I'm going? This is not a simplistic topic. It's a topic that needs to be done, and there will be a lot of pushing and shoving on what it will eventually be. But we need to start. We really need to start that discussion. Fighting politically about nonsense will still remain nonsense. And that's where we are right now. Let me close off today with a few things. I noticed that there are a few new presidencies that have been set with verdicts that have been handed down in the past week. For example, in the verdict of Vineyard Heights, continuity in government depends on civilians knowing what is right and what is wrong in government. I think that's wrong. Continuity in government should always continue, because civilians don't know what's right and wrong. And while you say we need to know the law, if every civilian knew the law, then we don't need lawyers, because we all know the law. But I think we need to look at it a little different. Also, there was another verdict where a union lost a case regarding the CLA clauses that were pushed aside because of the COVID period and the pandemic and monies that had to be paid out, but the union didn't work along, so the company took a decision to do it themselves. And the judge says, well, in reality, the situation was of such that you can't keep a CLA binding because of a pandemic. Again, while I understand the decision fully, I don't know if the context was correct. But again, I'm not the judge. That's what they pay them to make these verdicts. But they have set now some precedencies, because the pandemic is used to null and void a CLA, and that can be difficult and dangerous, because how long does the pandemic last in a company to justify a CLA not being implemented properly again? For 2 years, while I was not in Parliament because of a faulty constitution or of our country, this government has sought every possible excuse not to legalize weed, nor the tolerance policy, so that our people, especially the younger generations, stay out of jail and still have a clean record, so that they can try to make something out of themselves by getting a decent job and now going back to school. It seems that they prefer to keep us as beggars and criminals instead of making legal money and paying taxes. A new economical pillar will be established under the now, which would be the legalization of weed. The Bahamas have just now legalized medicinal cannabis, and the US Virgin Islands and the BVI, British Virgin Islands, have also legalized the usage of cannabis. We will wait naturally until everybody have done it, so we can do as we usually do, follow blindly. Let me leave you with some food for thought, so you can derive your own conclusion on what's happening and where the Now Party would like to take you. Transparency and accountability in our government is one of the biggest issues, as you don't know when they're hiding or lying about the truth. The deceit that is labeled as political maneuvering is just sickening. And it's only getting worse as we start the formal election campaign in a few weeks. Accusations were made and questions were asked by coalition members about the justice and the Vromi minister. And crickets is all you hear. Not a peep, not an answer. It is so unfortunate that we have reached this low point in informing the people of the country what they will be facing in the very near future. We know where we stand with our finances. Clearly, when you read the article, you will read that the next few years are going to be rough years for Sint Maarten. Yet the people are given roses as if everything is nice and dandy. It is not. Thank you all for being here today. Please share my podcast and subscribe to my YouTube page. Remember, failing to plan is planning to fail. And this government has done this over and over and over. Bunks out. Take care. Next week I will not have a podcast as my court case will be starting on the 4th of September. And hopefully, with God's prayer and my defense lawyers, I will be able to prove once and for all, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that what I was accused and convicted of was utter nonsense, because the truth will set me free. Take care.